All right, we'll get started. Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening for our Village of Alsip Committee meeting. Today is May 26th, 2020. We'll call this 7:34. Can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Trustee Dalzell?
Here.
Trustee Zielinski?
Here.
Trustee Juarez did notify me that she was not going to be attending this evening. Trustee McLaughlin?
Here.
Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Trustee Nava-Esparza?
Here.
Mayor Ryan?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so to start the meeting this evening, we're going to have a RFP that's a request for proposals regarding insurance for property, boiler and machinery, cyber, and pollution coverage.
Yes. We did receive one proposal.
I'm going to grab something out of my office real quick.
Okay. The proposal is from Horton at 10320 Orland Parkway, Orland Park, Illinois 60467. Shanae or Kent, is there a dollar amount you need read into record?
If you just have the underlining total amount.
Shanae, any idea where that would be in here? Because I keep seeing there's different, there's property,
You know what?
and they're giving total insured values.
Yeah, this is the building contents. Earthquake. That should be the total figure right there.
And then you need,
That's on the property. And boiler and machinery would be this other coverage on the side. These are your coverages.
these are the limits, but I'm not seeing the dollar amounts associated with these. Is that just this?
You know what? It'd be the
It should
page
show
in
a
the front.
premium.
It'll be in the front.
Because I'm not seeing that. Page 2 is the table of contents. There's the summary, the RFP requirements.
So go to the other page that you were on with, show the pricing that you had at 101,000.
I mean, this is the year-to-year premium, so I'm
That's your
thinking.
comparison, right?
So this is the current one, and then this is the new one?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want Sinead, do you want the individuals for building contents and those dollar amounts read, and then the total insured value read into the record?
Shanae?
Sorry, I couldn't.
There you go, yeah.
You couldn't unmute. You're talking and nobody's hearing you. Okay. Building, the dollar amount is $89,124,337. Contents is $8,511,589. Business interruption is $3 million even. Flood, each occurrence and in the annual aggregate, $5 million. In the flood zones, A and V is not covered. Earthquake, each occurrence and in the annual aggregate is $5 million. Mobile equipment is $681,942. EDP is $339,175. Total insured value is $101,657,046.
So that's, okay, so I see what you're saying. That's the property insurance.
Right,
Okay. So then they got their breakdown there.
correct.
And, okay, keep going.
Talk about the coverages for boy machinery. And then they have the cyber coverages.
There should be a premium sheet in there as well.
Here's coverage endorsements and exclusions, pollution, and those special coverages.
Yeah, Shanae, they're just showing like our deductibles and whatnot, but they're not showing a premium.
I mean, I'm not missing it, correct? I mean,
Submit a bid?
I can try to shoot over an email to Tony and hopefully he'll respond to see if there's something we're missing.
Okay.
That,
yeah,
that we're looking.
I did talk to him earlier just to make sure, he had sent an email to make sure that we had received it, and I told him that, yes, I had a FedEx envelope here.
So go back to deductibles, like you had by cyber and all that kind of thing. So boiler and machinery,
Coverages,
all the way down.
deductibles. I am not seeing,
Must be on the next page. I'm not seeing the deductible on that. Oh, neither one.
yeah, I'm not seeing an
Yeah.
actual fee.
Yeah.
I'm not, okay?
Yeah, Shanae, it's got all the coverage, but there's not a fee sheet that should be in there, or with premiums.
Oh, okay, I'm emailing them now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if he gets back, let us know.
Thank you. Didn't think I was missing
And
something.
like you said, usually, as Shanae said, usually is...
Should be a summary sheet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
so we will come back to bid opening. Sorry, Mayor Ryan.
Exactly. We'll go to officers' reports, starting with myself. A couple of quick notes. A couple of good-looking projects going up. I'll tell you, if everyone's seen the new 7-Eleven that's going up at 127th and Pulaski, it looks really nice. They're doing some really nice-looking stonework. The facade's going to look great on that building. Also, I saw the new billboard that we endorsed, we supported, I should say, that's going up over by the water tower. Danny, that looks really nice. It's a V-shaped billboard. So you're seeing north and southbound on 294 near our water tower by the flea market. When are they supposed to power that up, Dan?
They're just waiting for IDOT stamp of approval.
IDOT has to approve it. Okay. Has it turned on?
They've tested it, yes.
Oh, really? It was tested. Okay. It looks really nice. And then I noticed how they cut the trees too. Boy, they look like somebody had like a real flat square out there. I mean, all the trees are flat when they look at this thing then too, you know, and they're all the same height. What else was going on here too? I had a really good conversation today too that I can't divulge the name yet, but more interest on Pulaski of a diversified business too. So, in fact, I noticed we have some of our new businesses in the room tonight, and certainly not a competitor, but some good interest in our community. After I reached out to a group a couple of weeks ago, he got back to me today. So we'll talk more about that with economic development coming up. Kent and I spoke about it today. We're going to look at see what we still have available in TIF-wise over in Pulaski. As far as my report goes on the agenda, the first thing on here was a presentation regarding a Phase 3 of the Restore Illinois plan, allowing bars and restaurants to serve outdoors with restrictions. What I passed out to everybody before the meeting started was just a couple of ideas that the Police Chief Miller and I discussed. We've got a ordinance that pertains to beer gardens. In this particular situation, the government is doing its best to take baby steps to help support the restaurant and bar industry by allowing outdoor cafes. Chief Miller showed we met at the end of last week and showed interest. Certainly he has interest in this. He had a couple of ideas he wanted to share on this matter then too. First, what everyone saw in here is what I handed out this evening. It was Alsip already has a B3 special use, which is how all the bars and restaurants got liquor licenses to begin with. We do say in our ordinance that we request 4 or more tables in an outdoor facility. As far as permit fees were concerned, yearly for a regular beer garden, we ask for $200. I really believe this is going to be very short term. I actually dated this for approximately, this might be good for 90 days. However, it remains to be seen what the government decides, but I'd like to waive the permit fee at this time. Also, with conditions at a beer garden, no beer garden shall be permitted, maintained, or operated except in conformity with the following regulations. And the first one is what we have in our ordinance. The beer garden shall be specifically described and adjacent to and operate as part of a premises licensed to sell beer, malt, or alcoholic beverages for consumption on premise. Number 2 was occupancy shall be limited to 10 people per gathering and 6 feet of space between tables. I believe that's what the building commissioner and I just saw in the Restore Illinois overview that we got from the Illinois Department of Commerce. Certainly all electrical wiring should comply with the Village of Alsip building code. All combustible rubbish should be stored in a non-combustible covered containers. And 5, the noise emanating from any beer garden shall not violate any of the regulations of the village pertaining to noise abatement. Typically, a beer garden in our ordinance says that closing hours shall be at 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and midnight Friday and Saturday. Chief Miller requested that 7 days a week that we cap that at 11 p.m. We were talking 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I said 11, he said fine. So we were at, that's what I have in here, is 11 p.m. to be closed. Should someone decide they wish to have a tent on premise, what the chief expressed was, in particular, tents with sides defeat the purpose of reopening outside. It's counterproductive to the governor's order. So I'm saying, if you have to have sides, I'd like to see just at least 2 sides being permissible, and it's got to be fire rated too. Number 2, the order requires seating, and what the chief was saying, basically like in an open area, we didn't want to see like 100 people standing around having drinks. We are going to request that all venues have at least 4. I think in many cases in a suburban area, we're good to go. We've got some parking lots and so forth that's off-street. Many cases, that's what I think is right now, is so many businesses are in, for them to encroach the street could jeopardize the public and so forth. I think that's why it's taken up with their plan together. If they currently do not have outdoor seating and they are in a strip mall, said business must have written authorization from the landlord for the lot to be used, as it will affect other businesses, and also consider an insurance rider to cover that activity as well. Number 5 was having the fire department or the health department determine an occupancy number for the outdoor area based upon seating and social distancing criteria. And last I had on was restrooms, hand washing stations, etc. I was going to leave that up to the building department to take a look at and make provisions for that then too. Did anyone have any thoughts on any of this?
I had a question about number 2 on the top half. occupancy should be limited to 10 people per gathering. What
Do you mean
entails a gathering?
Well, that in the,
like you get people in your
that's what the ordinance says, yeah.
10 people at a table?
In an area.
In an area, together, yeah.
Okay,
10 people congregating together, more or less, is what they're saying.
so not just 10 people
Right.
in the whole, okay, good, because
And
we're
you know
violating
what?
that right now.
Joe Kankar, our attorney Joe Kankar, sent me an updated ordinance today as well, too, and because we don't have a board meeting until right after the first of the, I think, what's our next board meeting, the 4th, maybe?
June
Next
1st.
Monday.
Third.
That the 3rd?
That's the 1st.
The 1st.
First.
It's January, okay.
It is June 1st.
I mean, we can certainly have a consensus today, if we're in agreement with this, and we can approve the ordinance next week when we meet. This way, we can work with the governor's order to allow this to happen, this action to take place on the 29th, which is Friday, right? Today's the 20th, no, it's Thursday. Today's the 26th.
Correct.
So May 29th
Is
Friday.
Is Friday.
is Friday. That's what I thought. Oh, it's right. Man, somebody else just did that to me a little while ago, too. I'm thinking it's Monday and stuff, yeah, too. So, all right, you're right. Yeah, so it's Friday. So I'd like to, obviously, let the businesses start off the weekend correctly. So if
Do we have enough time for the inspections to take place?
they have to, that's, we're meeting with everybody tomorrow and so forth, so they've got time. We don't really have, I mean, you know, the frequency of the venues isn't as many, I mean, in our community, it's not that bad,
Understand.
so. But, yeah, I mean, we'll do our best to try and meet the demand, you know, as it says. Any other questions?
Just to Trustee Zelinski's point, so if some beer garden and there's 10 at space, anything in excess of that would be in violation.
Well, it's 10 people, that's going to be it's going to have to be by interpretation. You know, in other words, 10 people are meeting together. You can have that at one table, but you might have 10 people at the next table and stuff then, too.
Because I also came across information on the DCO, Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunities website, and they have a toolkit for businesses, and language that they have listed here, I'll just read them. Any other outdoor dining and drinking areas authorized by local governments, provided that food and drinks are prepared by licensed food or liquor establishments, and that proper social distancing of 6 feet between designated customer tables and or other seating areas is observed, and parties are of 6 persons or fewer. So I think just having clarification, because my fear is just people driving by and posting on Facebook like, hey, there's 12 people at this restaurant and so forth, and, you know, it'll escalate in other ways. So just so that we have clarity as to what that is, that we're all going to agree on.
I was looking at what Trustee Dalzell said, too. That was the first direction we got from, I think it was from the Illinois Municipal League that sent it over, too, at the gathering of 10 people. And you're saying the other one came from?
The Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. They have a toolkit for restaurants. I can send the link to the board.
That's this here, right, that you're looking at?
I can't see that far, I'm sorry.
Okay, so,
That's Restore Illinois.
I need glasses.
okay, so this is the official Restore Illinois policy, and actually, my assistant Becky just emailed this to all the trustees. There was quite a few a lot of dark blue ink. But what they're saying in here is, for general health, this is for bars and restaurants for outdoor dining guidelines. General health, our face cover, presence of others, maintain, as you said, maintain social distance 6 feet, arranging seating as necessary. Bar and restaurant, wash their hands for 20 seconds upon arrival to work, prior and during food preparation, when switching between task and before donning gloves or using the restroom, etc. Wearing gloves when preparing food per COVID food handling protocol. Health monitoring, you know, employers should make, okay, that's for the employers. Disinfecting and cleaning procedures. Physical workspace, they actually, okay, so display signage at entry with face covering requirements, social distancing guidelines, and cleaning protocols in multiple languages as needed. Configure space of at least, as you said, 6 feet of distance between the tables for customer service areas. when in closed, open, congregate areas, in other words, waitress areas and self-food areas, buffet and salad bars situations, they want you to close the open congregate areas, is what they're saying. Use a single packet of condiments, disposable silverware, and disposable or touchless menus if possible. Eliminate table presets, in other words, table tents and menus, salt and pepper shakers, as you said, refilling customers' beverages, self-service beverage stations. Use single packet condiments. Water fountains, except for touchless water bottle refill stations, should be made unavailable for use. Customers should handle their leftover food to be taken to go. Display visual markers of 6 feet apart at customer queue points, and eliminate seating at bars. So they don't want you sitting in a bar situation. Staffing and attendance, limit occupancy of common areas, and they're just very broad about that. Live music is permitted with social distancing. Performers should wear face mask coverings where possible, and the use of barriers between singers and customers and employees is strongly encouraged. And before allowing external supplier, or this is for deliveries and so forth yet too, keep a log of all external suppliers who enter their premises. And then finally, customer behavior, 6-person party limit, reservation or call ahead model. Customers should wait for services off premises, and customers coverings nose and mouth while on, except while you're drinking at the table. So a lot of back and forth rules. That's what I was saying about interpretation and so forth. So
that does
But it
also
did
sound
say
like
six
it's saying
though.
6
Who takes
people.
precedence is the question.
pardon me?
But
Which
that,
takes precedence, the 6 or the 10?
well, but that
But
is
that
stating
just said
6.
six.
That is also stating parties of 6 can be 6 feet apart.
Yeah, John literally just read 6.
The governor's order.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what we were looking at, was when I said 10, that's what the governor sent out originally, and this is actually from the Department of Commerce, so everybody's got their own
You
definition.
go with the governor or you go with the commerce?
Yeah.
We
That's what
would
I'm
need
saying.
to know
I'm
that
not
right
sure.
now,
No, so,
right? What's it going to be?
Well, I would like to go for the least restrictive because you want to give the businesses the best chance to survive.
I agree.
Well, you can't,
If anybody else has some kind of pre-existing condition, they have to take responsibility for themselves to protect themselves.
And if you're wearing masks and your
Not
tables are
everybody's going
6
to be
feet
wearing
apart,
masks when you're eating and drinking.
Right, but
I mean,
you take
come
the
on.
mask off to
Like I
eat.
said, common sense has to dictate
Let's
what's
hope.
going on here.
Scarves are wearing scarves then.
Or bandanas, or, right.
well, it's pretty general. It's face covering, so.
we're having fun with the neighbor over the weekend. It's a guy doing the T-shirt thing up, like, one of these things and stuff, like the cheater, wouldn't buy the mask. But I tell you what, give me just 1 second, folks, real quick. I got the other thing, like you said, let's make a determination which, because I got the other letter sitting right here too,
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to hold everybody up. Obviously, we're all getting so many different viewpoints from different. The other one over for the Retiree program said gatherings of 10 people, as Trustee Dalzell said, but then when it came to bars and restaurants in Phase 3, it said, delivery and carry out and stuff like that, but didn't identify with the bar situation like this one here did. I did have our attorney today draft an ordinance, and Joe revised it based on some language here, but basically it's an ordinance of the Village of Alsip, Cook County, authorizing restaurants, bars, and other food and beverage establishments to resume operations in outdoor seating areas during Phase 3 of the Restore Illinois Plan. Let it be ordained by the Mayor and Board of Trustees as follows. During Phase 3 of the Restore Illinois Plan, any restaurant, bar, or other food or beverage establishment authorized and licensed to sell, serve, and allow the consumption of food, beverage, and/or liquor on premises in the village shall be authorized to resume business operations in outdoor seating areas only. Outdoor seating areas may be established on or in patios, parking lots, servicing the establishment, or in other areas authorized by law. All businesses shall strictly abide by such other laws, orders, rules, and regulations, and guidance placed on their operations by the Village of Alsip, the State of Illinois, the Governor of the State of Illinois by the Executive Order, and the Illinois Department of Public Health, and the Illinois Department of Commerce guidance, including those involving employment practices and social distancing. Notwithstanding anything herein to the contrary, outdoor seating shall not be permitted in areas that would pose an unreasonable risk to the safety of patrons, obstruct vehicular traffic, or the visibility of those operating motor vehicles on public ways, or otherwise conflict with life safety requirements imposed by law, as determined by the building commissioner. It shall be unlawful to operate an establishment as authorized herein between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. of any day. And then we've got penalties and so forth in here then too. And the effective date of this, the corporate authorities of the Village of Alsip hereby find and determine that the state of urgency exists such that this ordinance shall take effect immediately upon passage and approval in order for establishments to maintain their operations at the expiration of an executive order issued by the office of the mayor. Village of Alsip scheduled for 11 p.m. on this date. This ordinance is authorized to be published in a pamphlet form. And we're looking for this to be approved on June 1st, obviously at our next meeting. But again, a consensus would be, as I'd like to get a consensus on this to see if we're going to allow bars and so forth to operate this starting Friday on the 29th when the governor's plan goes into effect. As you said, Trustee, we had one version of 10 people, another version at 6 people. That would be up for us to determine. We are a home rule authority.
Just to further comment on Mayor, I think maybe about a week it's changed, is that what the governor had, or what I read was that businesses that don't adhere to certain recommendations or criteria also might lose certain insurance coverage with their providers and so forth. So we want to help businesses, but at the same time being conscious that, then they might have insurance coverage that might not be effective if they don't adhere to certain state level regulations and so forth. So I would just want us to all be conscious of that as well, so that we're not hurting our business community.
Sure.
As well. And I'm not sure if we'd have to have another round with our attorney to give us guidance and recommendations about the interpretation of that.
Well, like I said, everything that we're looking at from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, again, when it says staffing and attendance, even customer, 6-person party limit. Obviously, if this is what they're suggesting, as it sounds like a couple of you wanted to follow then too, we can certainly mandate that. Is that what we want to do?
Well, think about when you go to a restaurant and you don't want to wait around for a table of 10. You basically break up your party into 2 separate tables in order to be seated quicker. I don't think having parties of 6 is really a big deal. You're only going to be 6 feet apart anyway, so make it.
It's going to make sense anyway.
4
even
and 2,
in a temporary situation, you don't want tables so big, you get two tables in there and you're done.
Right.
That
And
kind
as
of
far
thing,
as the insurance thing go, wouldn't that be up to the business to get with their insurance company to see
absolutely.
what they would allow?
Right.
I mean, I don't think
Absolutely, we can't be micromanaging.
No,
their
we don't want
business.
to even
That's
get
not
involved
our-
in that. Why would we? I mean,
No, but we
looking
don't
out
want to
for
go
them.
ahead and encourage them
Exactly.
to,
Yeah, but that
Void
would,
their
again,
insurance
would be up to
coverage.
them, too. You don't want them to get in trouble for it, but, again, we're not
Well, then,
calling Allstate and,
then it would be fair to them to say then, as trustee Navas Barza pointed out, that, and this is why we sent these to everybody earlier, that we are certainly recognizing the Restore Illinois program guidelines is distributed by the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So everyone's got a copy of these that went to your emails and so forth then, too. Joe Schmidt's here. Joe's our fire prevention officer. Joe, did you have anything you wanted to share?
Could you come up to the microphone, please, Joe?
Mask on or off?
You can be off.
And then I'll need you to sign in as well, sir. Thank you.
Is it working, Rod?
Yeah.
All right. Joe Schmidt, Fire Marshal, also fire. It will be a great opportunity for the Alsip to take advantage of this and help out all the businesses. Yes, they do have parameters for each, agency, whether it's the governor's office, whether it's the Department of Commerce, could be, the Illinois Department of Public Health, it could be anything, whatever comes up with something. I'm dealing with this also with the parks, though. It's really tough. We're really getting jammed up now. But for the businesses, it's pretty self-explanatory, except for as you bring up 6 versus 10. I don't want to be a person to make this decision, whether their insurance needs to verify something like that. I want to know. Here's a company here, a restaurant that would take advantage of this. He'd have to look into it to see what their insurance company would say. But we shouldn't, you're right, you shouldn't make the stance on that. But what I'm here to tell you is we're going to make sure between the building commissioner and myself that we follow all the life safety issues, all the fire safety issues, and whatever else for the building departments, such as making sure the thing has no trip hazards, make sure it's going to withstand any high winds. Lately, we've been having storms and a lot of rain. And number one, everybody's safety. That's why I'm here tonight, because I wanted to give support to the building commissioner on this, because I've been doing a lot with the Park District on stuff lately. And I've done a lot between the 2 towns I work for. And this is tough. It's tough on everybody, and it's tough on the businesses. But
Right.
if we can help them out, that's why I'm here. So make it for what it's worth. 6, 8, split it down the middle, or 10, but it might go right back to their insurance companies, what they say.
And certainly, as you point out, Joe, safety is priority for everybody. And like I was saying to the board when we started, some might opt for a tent, some might not.
May not do it either,
They
yeah.
might have tables out there and stuff
Well,
like
you have a
that.
couple.
But with a safety barricade
You have a couple restaurants that have seating already,
Yeah.
beer garden areas and that. We'll have to go in and we'll measure and tell them where they can put the tables and how many, and that's it.
Right.
And then it's a policing issue. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that the police department's doing it. It's a policing issue of the owners to
Right.
make sure they're not going over what we're giving them as a gift, basically, because we're doing this.
Oh, sure. We're very sure.
So hopefully nobody takes advantage of it.
Right. All right, so that we are going to, as I said, Board, we are going to recognize the guidelines for restaurants and bars and outdoor dining on what the Illinois Department of Commerce has put out. As the clerk pointed out, it depends how many people we can service as far as requests are concerned. Like, as Joe just said, there's a couple of people that already have beer gardens, so it might just be a matter just going in just to review what they have and to tell them if they need to move some tables or just for compliance. But anybody else that doesn't is certainly calling the building department to get their approval, and Roger has to go out and take a look and get of approval on that then. I would like tonight for a consensus if we're going to adopt this. We can do a formal vote on it next Monday night, but this way, some of these businesses won't lose the weekend waiting for us, to do so and so forth then too. So a lot of this all came up. A lot of these changes are last minute. Like I said, I had an ordinance last week, and there was new information that came out today, and that's why our attorney adopted what came out today, and so Joe Cankart took care of it today. So I'd like to ask the clerk to call a consensus vote. I'm asking for a consensus vote, and to see if we want to follow this guideline.
Will that be 6 in a party or 10 in a or 10 in a party?
It's 6 is what Restore the Illinois Commerce recommends.
Yeah, I think that the designated groups of 10 can happen.
Right.
But specifically when we're talking restaurants and the tables, they need to be in 6s, I think is where the
That's what I
difference
said.
between 6 and 10
It's by interpretation of what you're doing.
Yeah, I was going to state, it would be a congregation of no more than 10 people. So if they have seating of 6, and you have 4 more people come over, it's still meeting the requirements of the executive order.
I don't know about that.
I don't know what you just said. So I have a party of 10. I have a table of 6 and a table of 4.
You've got a table of 6 and a
Are
table
they
of 4.
pushed together, or are they 6 feet apart?
Tables should be
They're 6 feet
separated.
apart.
Okay.
But if those 4 people come over and congregate with them,
No.
within,
Right, you've established a 6-person parameter is what you did.
6 seats, no more than 10 people?
Right.
I think we're getting really gray here.
Well, we want to be fair and consistent to the businesses.
That's what I'm
because
saying.
When somebody walks up and everyone's quick to snap pictures and put them on social media and cry
That's-
foul, and the village isn't doing their job, we need to be clear and concise as to
That's why I'm
what it
saying
is.
I think it's
So-
getting kind of gray.
But I think, at least reading through the information, they talk about, groups of 10, yes, are allowed. Is outdoor activities, or if you're having a party in your own backyard, you can have groups of 10. But I think specific to the restaurants, they're talking about tables of 6, and then you've got to still maintain the social distancing.
Right.
So if you now start talking about 10 people gathering around a table, you're breaking the social distancing rules. So I think we're better off if we just go with the tables of 6
That's what we were
and make
saying.
it clear.
I can appreciate
Oh,
what
no,
you're saying,
4
Roger.
people
that
can't walk up and
you-
huddle.
Yeah, you can have 4 people walk up and say hi, but we're establishing a 6-person.
Okay.
I said parameter, but I meant a 6-person table, a seating table, yes.
seating of 6.
Right.
Okay.
Call the roll, please.
Okay, so again, this is to establish a consensus that the guideline of 6 seats per table spaced 6 feet apart in outdoor dining spaces.
I think more to the point would be is we're asking for a consensus to adopt and recognize the Illinois Restore guidance, restaurant and bars, guidance for restaurant and bars, outdoor dining is what, you can use that language on there. Yeah.
up at the
Hey,
top.
Mayor.
Is this emailed to me as well?
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Are these all
Mayor.
the same pages?
No.
Okay.
Mayor Ryan? This whole coronavirus thing has been a fluid thing since the beginning. Everything changes as things go. So if we put this ordinance in on June 1st, if the governor comes down on June 15th and says, hey, we're okay with 10 people, blah, 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 or it gets even bigger than that,
We can
is this
change it as
ordinance
we go.
garbage after that, or what?
Sure.
So
We
it'll be
can- we can-
abolished right away?
Amend
We
it.
we can amend it, yeah.
Well, why wouldn't we just adopt the governor's executive order? That way, as it's fluid, we're allowing whatever's allowed in the state of Illinois.
You know what, trustee? I was trying to pull up the governor's executive order, and I had this, is what they sent to me, but I've seen the other, and that's what I couldn't find it. Do you have that in front of you at all? That's what I couldn't pull up when I was in my office just now. I probably have one copy that was sent to me last week.
This way, if we could do something, businesses on us to make an official decision when it's made
That's why
by
I'm
the
bringing that
state.
up tonight, right? I know I had the seal of the state of Illinois at the top of the thing. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes.
So should we even mandate a particular seating number in our ordinance, or should we just go by what the governor
No,
said?
that's what I'm saying. I don't want to mandate anything. I just wanted to recognize what they were saying in the guideline here, that's all.
But the guideline is going to have to be published
Yeah.
somehow, and something is going to need to be highlighted or bubbled or something so that when the business owners
You have
have
to
it,
put something out
they've
in
got
order.
something different
Roger has
than...
nothing
They claim
to protect
ignorance,
against
and
for it.
I didn't know. So something has to be put out, so at least so that the business, and communicated so that the businesses know. Otherwise, they're going to say, we had no idea, it was never told to us.
Okay, is this, I realize that they're trying to try to get this so that the businesses can open up for this weekend, but is this something that is worth waiting and we can put it on for discussion and vote both on Monday?
No, because we want to let them open on
I
Friday.
understand.
So, I'm sorry, because there is something with the seal of Illinois, just take me 1 second, I can get this.
Relax, talk amongst yourselves.
Want some candy?
Is the drawer open?
Or is it?
May I?
Absolutely.
Trustee Navis-Barza, if you'll open, and I'll ask you to... Social distance. Could I have a package of M&Ms, please?
Than I do?
M&Ms?
M&Ms.
Plain or peanut?
Plain, please. Not allowed to have peanut right now.
I don't want to hit you on accident.
Good toss. Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Delzo. Appreciate it. We can do this.
What?
Social. M&Ms.
Like a scene from Blues Brothers.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not going to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but actually, we're going to get, I mean, I don't expect everyone to take advantage of it. We got 20,000 population, so that means we're going to need 5,000, 30,000. I don't know how many we've got for staff here already. Right, but it's not a one-time case. Should have done it already themselves. Your board and your thing, and employees are opening all these different things. Yeah. I was in the kitchen. Yeah.
I can't find the actual governor's order online.
He gives a freaking announcement every day changing everything. You know, he's ridiculous. So
But I mean,
overkill.
it does specifically say part of what I was reading. It's like when you're in the groups of 10. Like it's okay, you can now put 10 people in a boat again.
Mm-hmm.
They have to wear masks.
It just seems to me that 25,000.
What I'm having a hard time finding is I thought still couldn't exceed 50 people in one place.
3 people in the household within 5 minutes.
Well, what do you think the place is?
I mean, if you
No, I thought it was you still couldn't have more than 50 people. Well, but then again,
It's so
stores.
contradictory. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I would think your square footage in a place like Jewel would depict how many people you can have going in and out.
Yes. It should.
But I mean, we know by the previous census, is how old?
10 years.
Yeah, so.
All I can find is like news articles, and I don't want the news presentation. I want to know
A union gave away masks.
exactly what he said.
Fine if your ears were up here, because you pulled them back and each go like this. They're so small. I was gonna say, make sure whatever bands we get are big enough.
Yeah, these are the, actually, these are the ones that are. And think about it, like something individually wrapped. Pretty nice.
All right.
On a 6-foot.
Sorry, so I deferred to Facebook. You know how reliable that is and stuff yet, so, all right? So, the governor last week announced that restaurants will be able to offer outdoor dining service in a third phase of his plan, which faced pushback across the state for being too strict since it was announced earlier this month. At outdoor tables spaced 6 feet apart, Illinois residents will be able to eat and imbibe outside their homes again during the reopening plan, served by employees who will be instructed to wear a mask over their nose and mouth, check their temperatures before clocking in, and wash their hands for 20 seconds every 30 minutes. Restaurant operators are being asked to do away with refilling customer beverages and instead utilize new glasses and serve food using delivery trays to minimize hand contact. So really, that's the only guidance that we had on this, aside from the other, and I did, Trustee Dalzell, I did look, and I didn't, being sent, I didn't have one with the governor's message on there for right now. So I guess what we're asking for consensus on then, too, is to,
Mayor, I sent it to you.
you found it?
I sent it to your email.
Oh,
This one?
yeah.
This is press release,
Okay, so this was the press release.
but I sent
Okay, so,
I'll get it.
So this is along the lines of what Trustee Navas-Barza was just talking about. With the DCEO being consulted. Okay, so again, the outdoor operational guidelines provided by the governor and his team prioritize health and safety while allowing our state's eating and drinking establishments to start bringing their team members back to work. We're pleased to see Phase 3 outdoor guidelines extend a range of food and beverage service providers. While we recognize it's not a solution for every business, we are encouraged by the creative plans in progress by local municipalities to implement measures that will help broaden the opportunities. Becky, this is a press release, but they don't get detailed in here. It's more or less like, it's a boy kind of thing yet too, but thank you.
That's the one that you were looking at.
Exactly. So I guess what I'm asking for consensus on is for the board to acknowledge the Restore Illinois restaurants and bars for outdoor dining guidelines is what we're going to adopt per what everyone was sent here stuff on too.
Okay, so this is a consensus vote for the board to adopt and recognize the Restore Illinois restaurants and bars for outdoor dining guidelines.
Starting Friday, May 29th.
Okay, one last time. Consensus vote for the guideline, for the adoption and recognition of the Restore Illinois restaurant and bars for outdoor dining guidelines beginning Friday, May 29th, 2020.
Yes.
Trustee Dalzell.
Yes.
Trustee Zelinski.
Yes.
Trustee Juarez is absent this evening. Trustee McLaughlin.
Yes.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Navas-Barza.
Yes.
The consensus is given.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry that took so long to get through yet too. And again, I appreciate our attorney Joe Cankar drafting some. Joe's always on the ball with that. Joe Schmidt, I know you're a Park District Commissioner too. Are you guys going to be doing something like at the golf course or anything like that then too?
Oh,
or-
yeah.
Did you?
Just got the new update today, foursomes, 10-minute parts between tee-offs.
10 foot between driving range station, 10 feet between driving range stations.
Driving range is going to be open, we're going to be able to do that, seating outside to eat.
Right.
I have to measure for that, of course, and do all that.
It's interesting. I saw the pictures in New York how somebody actually came out with the 6-foot. They painted the grass. That kind of give you like your zone and that
We could do that, I shouldn't be saying this is a meeting, but
Yeah.
we could be doing that for our outdoor concerts too.
Sure.
Because that's going to be a goal.
Exactly. Those are always a great venue.
It's killing us. Nobody will give an answer. And I was on across the United States the other day in a webinar, and nobody will answer. When we're going to be able to open our pool. Nobody will, not even a go. Got my little dig in there, thanks.
And then, well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate you being here tonight too. At the same.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want the businesses in our town to be able to.
Sure. Before I switch, we did have a couple in the audience from Deuces. Do you have any comments or anything like that? Okay. You're welcome to stay for the whole meeting, but it might get boring. You're not offending anybody if you want to leave. Let's put it that way. Okay. Yeah. We're pushing the social distancing thing and stuff. So no, we're good. And certainly we'll be around, or get a hold of Roger if you want to take advantage of any of these opportunities starting Friday too. Okay. All right. So Roger and Joe will take care of that. Okay. You too, Jim. Sure. Next on your agenda, I had a request to approve an executive order of the village president and local liquor control commissioner of the village of Alsip, Cook County, Illinois, which is what I just read off here a little bit ago then too. So this was ordinance will assign and when the time comes, but we'll put this up for a vote next Monday night.
Okay.
And all here for this evening. Clerk's report?
We have, I have no tonight, Mayor Ryan. I'll just have some questions when we get down to opening Village Hall under Human Resource and Insurance.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure. Public forum, anyone in the audience wish to address the board? Nobody? Standing committee reports, Finance and IT, Trustee McGlohan.
First, I will have the usual list of payroll and accounts payable for approval. And next, tonight of all nights, Kent wants to talk to us about the budget.
The budget part's pretty easy. What you have in front of you is that you saw last time with one exception. We received a $10,000 census grant, so both and the expenditure line go up 10,000, so it's a net neutral. That would be found in the mayor's contingency line item. Other than that, it's the same budget that was given before. We will be looking at that budget on June 15th for passage at that board meeting. And we will be getting the clerk's office the newspaper notice properly.
Well, at this point, though, we have never seen the revenue projections to get an
Yeah,
idea
so-
of where we're at in this.
Yeah, so that's where I'm going next. It's actually proving to be very difficult, so let me give you a little bit of breakdown on some of that. I had done a full revenue projection beforehand, and the general fund was in balance, but that's all before COVID-19. So it's very difficult to get some of them. I'm going to give you some.
Well, I don't think we want to have them read to us. We need a document, and
I
we
got
need to
it.
be able to take a look at that, and before we can set a date for passage, we
You're
need
not
to be
going
comfortable
to
with all of that.
you are not going to get a good revenue projection by the
We
time that
understand
this-
it's estimates, and nobody has a crystal ball at this point in time, but the board hasn't seen anything yet.
Yes, you are correct. And part of that reason is it's proving to be very difficult. If you think about the revenues that we get, very little of them are done in real time. So, for instance, one of the better one would be business licenses, and that's down 22% if you look at just April and May. We haven't, if you look at March and April, I'm sorry, we haven't even finished May. Almost everything else is delayed. And so if you think about income tax, it takes a while after April 15th before we receive the monies, but the state let that go out for another 3 months, so a lot of people haven't paid their income taxes yet, and it still takes the state a while to get through that process. Hotel, motel, we've seen a 42% drop, but it's a bigger drop than that. Again, it takes them a while to file, even though that they do it at the clerk's office. Sales taxes, we have no idea, because it takes them till the next month before they turn in sales tax. Then the state normally has 2 months, but there's been another 2 months extended on that. So really, nobody is giving good projections out there of where we're going to go. The only ones we've gotten so far, and they put asterisks all over it, that it is rough approximations, is the IML. And they said the corporate personal property replacement tax, they thought would go down 30%, but the budget, the bill that just went through, cut out $311.9 million additional dollars. The LGDF, which is our income tax, they projected to go down 15%. MFT, 15%. The Transportation Renewal Fund, which is a new fund, but it's now half of what they projected less than half of what they projected a few months ago. There's not much you can do about this. The budget, it's going to be almost impossible to come up with any numbers, especially given the months and months. You won't even see in the income tax and sales tax. If you held this out to the last chance you could pass it by the end of July, you would even see an impact on those because of how long it's delayed at the state at this point. So I will put that out there, and it will be part of the budget presentation, and it will be there. But I will tell you, it's not going to affect right now what you're passing unless you're to the point of layoffs, because what the mayor proposed in his last budget cut out everything. I mean, there's not, outside of labor, there is really nothing in there. All of the capital items, and correct me if I'm wrong, almost all of them. There's a few emergency ones. The road and bridge has a roof that needs to be replaced. There's a few emergency ones. But outside, and there's one related with it that we've seen. But essentially, they've all out every single thing. So there's really not much you about the expenditures anymore than what's already in this. This is about as extreme as you can get without laying people off.
Kent, I don't have the revenue in front of me from last year. What was our revenue, anticipated revenue last year, or what did we receive? Do you know? Do you remember?
I set up. Just give me a sec.
And it's not certainly going to be the same every season. I know you'd said originally when we started our budget process, we were anticipating almost $52 million in revenue, and then we dialed this down almost $2 million. Where right now we're at $49.6 million. And originally, our original budget before that was almost $51.5.
Yeah, so if it's deciding to disconnect me.
I'm sorry, we started at 52.4. We were a little bit over budget. Now we're down to 49.6 million. That's on page 26 at the end of your sheets.
It's just deciding to disconnect speak.
All
So
right,
I will get
so
back to that once I get back.
As Trustee
in.
McLaughlin pointed out, it does help when we're looking at where the revenues are coming from. But again, it's almost irrelevant when it comes to what we need to, I mean, it's relevant, don't get me wrong, it's relevant to what we're spending, but based on like what you said, we're dialing down and I want to just remind everybody that, you know, per what the state of Illinois or across the country, everything I've been reading and getting, the country at large is next year is going to be $500 billion. The state of Illinois this year dialed down their budget $2.7 billion. Next year they're dialing it down $4.6 billion, which is why Kent and I had the conversation when he made the presentation about a month ago, just to say that we need to follow suit and we need to dial it down the best we can. That's what I had said to the board last week. It's one thing to dial down a budget and, you know, say we're not going to spend for a year or so, but we still have to try and find some resources without, you know, we're doing everything we can to stay away from property taxes and all that. We're not even talking about that right now. We're trying to find we're always trying to find unconventional revenues if we can. And I think one thing I distributed to the board this evening was an idea that I had as well, too, was outdated, and I apologize, I asked, we printed these right before we started tonight. I'll get everybody a copy. It might be easier to read. Maybe it's good the way you've got it. But what I put at the top of the suggestion was suggested increase of building permit fees as the existing fees haven't been adjusted since some, and that's why I put at the top of each section that you're looking at, there was a date next to it. Like, say, for instance, it started off with residential building permit fees, last amended in 2005. I actually saw some that hadn't been amended since 1989 or 1996. And what I put on here was my justification was the cost of the inspector fees need to be increased to have qualified personnel performing inspections, and staff has received, like in other words, when I say staff, it's building and water departments and whatnot, anybody with the building department, let's say on average they're getting maybe a 2 or 2.5% increase in compensation every year, and my predecessor, he hadn't adjusted the cost to meet the operations need. In other words, the village has been assuming those costs. And what I was doing with my recommendations that you'll see there, I put down what the ordinance says, and again, I apologize, I don't have these in color to better show you what I'm talking about, but say, for instance, if you go down, just for an example, a popular one that a lot of people will do is maybe a garage, letter D on the first page, residential garages. The fee for a permit, for a building permit to erect a garage in a residential district would be $50.25 plus inspection fees. And what I'm recommending is I went actually 2.5% a year for the last 15 years. This hasn't been adjusted in 15 years. And I'm saying to make that go from $50 to $70, plus the inspection fees. And right now, inspection fees were $35, and I was increasing those to $50. So these are marginal increases. We're not stepping on the, we're not pounding on these numbers. If letter F was a residential fence, if the fee for a building permit to erect a fence in a residential district used to be $25, I'm making it $35 with an inspection fee of $50. So I'm not going to go through each one, but basically everyone gets the gist of this. Roger and I went through these numbers to make sure that I was accurate with what I was looking at. Really, we're not seeing much right now in the way of residential homes being built. You know, we don't get a ton of those. We're kind of landlocked in that regard. But say, for instance, Roger, I was just looking for, let's say, like inspections, let's say for the 7-Eleven that's going up right now, commercial or industrial building permit fees to erect any type of building or commercial. This would be on your third page. Letter A, the fee for a building permit to erect any type of building in a commercial and or industrial district shall be charged at a rate of $10 per $1,000 of estimated cost of construction, plus all the applicable fees for inspections and so forth. And what I did was I increased that by 40%, and in line with everything else I had done. So I went to $14 per 1,000 plus applicable fees. And Roger, also when you slide down, let's say for those inspections, Roger, how many inspections? It's kind of hard to say. We don't have a typical number, or do you, on those?
Typically, I would go through it by the plans. Typically, that would be done by reviewing of the plans, and I would set the fees from there.
Okay.
Typically, for something like 7, there was like 6 electrical inspections. There were 8 inspections, and I believe 6 inspections for building.
Going to something like that, and you're going $10 per $1,000 of construction cost.
That's so basically we're going from 1% to 1.4%
Right.
of the estimated cost. So if it was $1 million, we'd get 1.4%.
Right. And on the final page, everyone, what I put down was the possible let's put it this way, the possible increase in revenues that would come from this adjustment, where the last 3 fiscal years, it's been kind of interesting. I know it's almost the same number every year. In fiscal year 17, we issued 1,110 permits. Fiscal year 18 was 1,152, and fiscal year 19 was 1,168. It's certainly a coincidence. I can't believe it's 1,100 permits every year, but it just depends on what kind of jobs are going up yet, too. I don't have all of the actual how much was spent in construction, but I do know in fiscal year 17 it was over $20 million that was spent in construction in 17. But just the 40% increase would actually bring in anywhere between $25,000 and $42,000. But again, that depends on how much money everybody's spending too on their construction, which isn't we don't know ballpark idea how much construction is going on this year.
We have a lot going on, but
don't use any names either. But there's a couple of big ones there.
There's a few big ones that are going out there, but we're still moving along with a lot of industrial. But the residential permits are down a little from where we would typically be.
So maybe, but these numbers did have to be adjusted. And Trustee Zelinski, that's why I'm sorry it took me till today. I've had a lot on my plate the last couple of weeks, but that's what I was telling you about a couple of weeks ago, is I wanted to go back. You're the chair I'm building, but that's why I wanted to go back to these, and because these have been outdated, and I think it was time that we get these back up to speed and stuff. And Roger agreed. And actually, what I put on here for you too, folks, was at the bottom of the first group, I just took two. I had done a survey with 2 other suburbs, with both Chicago Heights on one side of town and Burbank on the other. Similar in style, blue-collar communities, good communities, and just to see where their fees stood as well. And their fees were in line with what we were talking about here then, too. Again, a lot of these towns are $10 per 1,000. And that was as of last year when I started gathering a lot of this information yet too. But, so we are in line with what the other two communities are doing and too at the same time.
The other thing I would like to request in all of this is, can we drop the fees?
Oh, yeah, I try to round everything. I don't want to go like,
But I mean, I'm looking at C. It was $50.25, and we want to take it to $70.35. Can we just drop those pennies?
that's fine.
Round dollars.
You fall into that mode, you're trying to be accurate to what you check. We can round that to $1, that's fine.
Because, we've got it in C, D, E, F.
Yeah.
And I quit counting after
That's
that.
fine. No, when I bring it back, if we decide to go this route, I can certainly bring it back in the form of an ordinance, and I'll round those numbers for you and stuff then, too. But that was one idea on my side. If anybody else had some other ideas, certainly we're interested in hearing it. And the whole idea is to stay away from our taxpayers if we can, but, it's something that we can bring to the table and too at the same time.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
And this is just kind of on a personal point. You have your house re-roofed, you have the building permit, you pay for it. Who comes out to inspect it?
Either Daryl or myself would come out and inspect it twice.
You overlay?
If it would just be one inspection. If it
Okay.
was a tear-off, we have to do an ice and water barrier inspection.
Okay. So this
Mandated by
predate,
who?
Good question. You got that last year?
A compensation of some type, yes,
CRCA.
so I guess my question is then, how are you notified that the roof is now done and needs to be re-inspected?
The homeowner or the contractor is notified up front that they have to call us 24 hours ahead of time
Okay.
so that the inspection can be made. When they're completed, most of the time they say, hey, it's completed, leave the sticker at the door with the homeowner.
Okay.
But that first initial one, they have to be there while they're working on it.
So one thing we're looking at too, and this is something I told Roger before I had the position I'm in now. I was in contracting, and many of the villages I went to, and we did see this with Chicago Heights does it. I know Harvey does it, and a few other towns. Is they request deposits that are actually put in escrow, and it's a great idea because many times they won't call you to tell you the job is done, and whereas you paid your money. But we never, in other words, they were never told the job is done. It just puts more work on the department. And when you do set up, like, do that. This is fees right now, but we talk about
I was just wondering
operations.
how the follow-up is handled.
Yeah,
so
well,
that,
you put the onus back on her to get your deposit back and stuff then too. You have to call me to get this done. And they're hoping you forget and the village wins all the time and stuff then too. We don't have one of those here right now, but there are many communities that do.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kent right now? Go ahead.
So I gave you where the estimates were before COVID, so I'd gone through it all. We're just having a hard time getting through. It's both sides, by the way. We're just having a hard time coming up with a lot of this because we're not getting any signaling whatsoever from outside sources, from our own receipts because they're delayed, etc. And so it's going to be pretty brutal. I mean, most of these things are looking at 15 to 45% decline. You are not passing, in any circumstances, a balanced budget this year, and neither is any other government in this country. It's just not going to be. I guess states are mandated; they have to, but they're probably all going to be doing something. It's not quite. They'll be claiming it, but no one's going to be paying close to budgeted. So that's what the previous year and then this year's estimate. We're trying to come up with something. I don't even know if I can do it, but I'm going to try to come up with something before the budget hearing. Again, the budget hearing is scheduled for June 15th, and we will get the clerk's office something for the newspaper. Now, I seem to have lost. Well, okay, I'll try my pad of paper. The other thing is that the revenues, the expenses are as bare to the bones as you can pretty much get, as the mayor had already said before. The revenues are down, and for the most part, expenditures outside of pushing out the capital items for a year, and again, that just means you've got more to do in the future. But aside from that, most of them are pretty stable. The one exception that's going to happen has to do with the topic that's been really a lot of fun the last few years, which is the retiree benefit plans. With regards to the other post-employment benefit or retiree health insurance, we have the liabilities when our audit comes out are going to explode. The reason they are is the discount rate used to discount future liabilities is based off of a municipal bond rate for 20-year bonds of AA or higher. That went down essentially a third, which means that the unfunded liability back of the envelope is going to go up about $12 or $13 million. Nothing really changed, no new benefits to anybody, but how you record those liabilities on our balance sheet is going to go up dramatically. And that's not good for us because it's going to mean that we have to pay more each year to pay down those liabilities. The bigger one, however, is the police and fire pension plan. Those are expected to go up 11.2% without regards to the assets. So there's a few reasons for that, one of which is that last year the state legislature passed Tier 2 retroactive benefits for some new benefits. Some of it has to do with some actuarial change assumptions, and then wages just increase. So between all of those, there's expected to be an 11.2% increase in what is needed come property tax time. That does not take into consideration what's happened to assets. The bond rates have gone down, so reinvesting bonds is not really very profitable, and March was not a good month for equities. Now they've come back since. But the past few years haven't been. So our last fiscal year will probably come in around 0%. It's expected to come in around 6.5% a year. For the last 4 years, we've averaged about 4% rather than half for the last 5 years on a rolling average. Because we're not living up to the 6.5%, there will be even further pressure on property taxes in the next few years for this. Without that, it's expected to go up about $650,000 in levy, which is almost a 5% increase in the overall levy. I've been working with the mayor and with the streets superintendent, Mike Frater, and we've come up with a plan that can possibly alleviate some of this pressure on property taxes. I think no one wants a huge property tax increase at the end of the year in a year with a pandemic and so many people being laid off and having other difficult times. So we are doing everything we can to try to come up with a plan, but it is going to involve some revenue. And the revenue that makes the sense, we'll end up advocating probably next time, is a municipal gas tax. It's a new tax passed at the state level. I think there's almost every municipality around here has already voted for it in 2020, this calendar year. So we're one of the only ones who has not yet voted for it. And the plan will be to take those monies and put it towards road and bridge. It's a 3 cents a gallon tax. And then to take the monies, the property taxes, the equivalent, around the equivalent property taxes for that and some other road and bridge monies and put that towards the police and fire pension so it does not need to be an increase in such a dramatic increase in property taxes. We'd like to minimize property taxes. The beauty of that is sort of what the mayor was just saying. It's not all on the residences. It's not all on the residents. It's not all on the businesses. It's also the people who buy gas as they come through town. As you all know, I don't live in town, but I buy a lot of my gas in town. So it's a tax on me and everyone else likes me or who drives through. So it's not just on the people who pay property tax. So we don't want road and bridge to be light. But we have a huge expense. So in addition to everything else we have to do with the budget, we have to figure out how to solve that. And I will get you out on that probably in next month's committee meeting.
Kent, I made a couple quick notes when you and I were, well, things that are coming up here then too. I know in a couple of meetings we talked about trying to save money on memberships and whatnot. And I know we had talked about, I wanted to just get the board understood. Can you tell us again why, you explained it to me, but can you tell everybody why we cannot rescind our membership with the South End Convention Bureau? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so that one has to do, we have an intergovernmental agreement that may or may not be mandated by the state. All of the money that we give towards that actually comes from, and I think this, I'm hoping memory serves me right, I think we have a 6% tax on
We do.
hotels and motels, and I think 0.95% of one of those 6%, or 95% of one of those 6%, so 0.95% total, is allocated for that by an intergovernmental agreement. So we're still getting 5.05% of the hotel motel tax, but a portion of the hotel motel tax, even when it was implemented, goes towards the visitors, the Chicago Southland Visitors and Convention Center.
And where are you hiding the motel tax in the revenue projections?
This is a summary, and it is, and my eyes are starting to fail me. Give me a sec here.
Other intergovernmental taxes?
A sec. I should have brought my glasses. It's probably in it's local taxes. It's probably in local taxes.
All right.
So local taxes would be the locally collected ones. We have we have one on storage. We have one on hotel motel. We have a local gasoline tax. One last thing, going back to the gasoline tax that I'm proposing that every other municipality around here is already implemented in 2020. It wouldn't go into effect till January 1st of 2021. And it is different than MFT or the locally collected one. So in this case, like the locally collected one, it would be voted upon by you, the village board, but like MFT or the Transportation Renewal Fund, it would be collected by the state after, of course, the state puts their hands in the till and pulls out money like they're now doing the sales tax. So it would be collected by the state. And as I said, almost every single municipality around, and I'll get that list in that memo, has already passed that. So it wouldn't make sense to come into Alsip and have a lower tax than everywhere around. And this would alleviate some of the property tax pressure.
Any other questions for Kent right now?
Just a cursory review over some of these things. We've got 3 firefighters that are retirement, and so I don't know if one of them shows 0 for the projected futures. The other ones still show a dollar amount carrying through. I know it's projected forward, but I don't know if that's because the replacements will end up assuming those.
Yeah, so there's replacements at the bottom, so that was worked out with, those pretty much come from the fire department. We sat down with them. It's based, of when those people, and they did go and say, this person's got a projected date of this, and they projected the new people at the bottom.
Okay, and on the holiday pay for those three, all three receive full holidays throughout the rest of the year?
That is a good question. Again, I went through that with them a while ago, and I will definitely.
And then on the retirement buyout section, those two that are retiring, those are, again, forward projected. And I think that once they get their buyout, it's done.
Yeah, no, so police and fire on that with regard to the retirement buyout. The fire contract, any days that they have after there's around 6 months where they get to stay on the clock, any sick days they still have beyond that are paid out at a third of their wage rate.
Okay, well, these two guys are projected for the next 5 years.
Right, you've got them going all the way out until 2026? That's what he's talking about.
Okay. I got it. That's a good call. I will say that we're projecting 3 retirements a year, so it may net itself out to someone else, but I will look at that.
And the contract does provide for the retirement option for the police.
Not for payout after the 6 months.
Disagree.
I remember we talked about that. That's why that got zeroed out, but I thought the chief acknowledged that,
The
didn't he?
chief did acknowledge that.
I talked to the chief and to the deputy chief, and both of them agree that there is a payout.
Okay, because that was the message I
On the
had on it.
physical exam, in police department, it shows new hire tests, 5 at 625, which is 3125. You have the dollar amounts in there, 2,500. Down below a little bit, Cook County cabs, one time at $5,000, and it's in there at 5,500. And a little further down, batteries, 42 at $110.
I'm sorry, which department number are we in?
Police.
Okay, got it.
Talking about maintenance radios, it's 42 batteries at 110, so that math should be 4620, not 1650. Those are projected forward again. I'm thinking that if we replace all those batteries, we probably should have to do it every year.
Okay. So we'll ask the chief about that.
The senior citizen complex for Heritage 1. We've got their pool to be replaced at $410,000. I think it's prudent that we don't do it this year since the pool's not going to be open.
I had asked the same thing. We didn't push that out, though? That's what we were talking about in that last camera. We did push it out, Raj,
Okay.
right?
410,000 there.
Yeah, yeah.
We got the same thing. We've got a pool expense for Heritage 2, $15,550, and I don't think that the pool's going to open this year.
The pool's still open. I mean, it's open now. We're just not letting anybody into it. Once the governor opens,
Okay.
we'll be able to use it.
I mean, it's not a big dollar amount, but it just doesn't seem like we're going to be getting much use of those pools this year. That's all. Thank you.
I have one last
Oh,
thing.
you know what? You're right. Excuse me, one second. You're right. I thought we put the pool next year, right?
No, the reopening and
Yeah, but
the replacement is put,
Well, it's
But
still,
it's still
you got it,
included.
it's still in here, it's now, but I circled.
all right, you're going to delete that.
I circled
Right,
and pushed
okay, thank you.
an arrow to the right.
All right, and then, what was the other thing I just saw here, too? With the install the patio doors, we had on there $420,000. Are we still pursuing that, Roger?
Nope.
We need to take that out, too.
I think it's possible the Heritage did it. Heritage 2 is pushed out.
Well, Heritage 1, because as compared to the expenses, Heritage 1 is in bad shape.
Right.
Heritage 2 can
That's-
better afford it.
That's why I'm saying that, exactly. So,
So Heritage 1, and I'm seeing that it's in there every year, and it's not supposed to be, but Heritage 1, it is or is not being pushed out 1 year, the patio doors.
I'm going to say it's out. I mean, is that what we're saying? Yeah, I mean, because again, this budget is
Okay?
deficit the way it stands.
I will tell you that the Heritages are not going to see the revenue shortfall that almost every other fund is, but
Well, yeah,
especially
because
the
it's
general fund.
contained, but still.
I have one last thing, and that has to do with property taxes from a different side. As many of you may have seen in the newspaper, the Cook County Assessor Fritz Kagi has been talking about, he is reassessing all properties in Cook County. Now, in the south, we were on a triennial reassessment, but what he is doing is by doing one based off of COVID-19, which is a later than we would have normally been assessed, he is locking in expected EAVs than it would have been for the next 3 years in the Chicago Southland region, including Worth Township and Alsip. The way he is really looking at different properties and seeing how they interact in this environment. And so, for instance, restaurant spaces or hotel spaces will be in a lot worse shape than maybe some industrial spaces based on what's happening to restaurants and hotels out there and across the country, across Illinois, and in the region. So he is going through it. We're all sitting, waiting, trying to figure out what's going on. I did talk to him as part of a conference call late last week. I think it was Thursday. And based on where he's taking some of this, I believe he's taking some of this, I think we're going to get a major hit in the next 3 years, really 4 years, in the TIF funds. I think the revenue, we already, this year before COVID, saw a third decline in our projected revenue for the Pulaski TIF. We've talked about that. That's just a few properties, some of which we own and some of which went out and got appeals. So that took about just a few properties took about a third off of the amount of money, a little more than a third we ended up getting. I expect the lower EAVs to decimate the money coming into our TIFs for the next 3 or 4 years. There's no other way to say it. The lower EAVs do not affect really how much the government brings in. It does affect who pays for it, but it does affect TIFs, as we talk about every year at property tax levy. So don't expect money coming in to the TIFs. That's the conclusion. Again, budget hearing will be before the board meeting on the 15th, as it is every year, so it will be an earlier time than the normal board meeting.
All right, thank you, Kent. Anything else, Trustee?
No, sir.
Okay. Fire Committee report, Trustee Murphy.
No report tonight, sir.
Trustee, I did see Fire Chief, he reminded me that Thursday, firefighter, paramedic will be retiring this coming Thursday. Have the Police and Traffic Safety, Trustee Delzall.
Have the presentation of the Police Department April 2020 monthly activity report. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next, Public Work and Boat Launch Committee.
I request approval to promote one Class 2 laborer to position of Class 1 operator, and that's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Next is the Sewer and Water Committee, Trustee Nava-Esparza.
Thank you. I have discussion and request to approve an application fee and commitment with the Southland Water Agency by July 1st, 2020. The second item, request for approval to post for the hiring of one full-time Class 2 operator due to the retirement of Class 2 operator Fred Critch. Okay, thank you. And that's what I have.
Who's driving the Southland Water Agency?
That's what I was just going to, Kent, would you please come back up? Man, I left my, I don't know why everything seems to be laying on my desk tonight and stuff, but aside, we talked about this before, aside from, let's say, the mayor of South Holland, go ahead.
It's 3 municipalities, trying to remember.
It's Thornton and East Hazel Crest, too.
Right. So the three of them are putting this together, and as you will remember from the presentation here, they are trying to get to 20 million gallons of water in allocation. And
Per village.
no.
The
Oh,
whole,
I'm sorry,
the
total.
whole system. They have a contract in Indiana to bring the water to Illinois. There they build it. But they have an agreement where it can pipe in the ground, in the Lake Michigan, and have it built all the way to Illinois, and then they build it from there. They need 20 million gallons a day in order to become viable, and they want that by July 1st. So they have heavily incentivized that boards that approve it by July 1st get a much better deal than ones who approve it after July 1st, and it gets progressively worse from there. The dollar amount, I think, was the buy-in was essentially 429,000.
419, yeah.
489,000, and half of that would be this year. A quarter of it would be 1 year from now, and a quarter of it, the last quarter, would be another year from now. It's designed so that there's not as much risk should something go down partway through. Water Commissioner Dan Triben spoke to asked them at that meeting, what happens if you don't if the village board approves it and you don't hit 20 million gallons? Are you going to cash our check, and are we out the 50% of the 489,000? And they have gotten back to us. That was part of your packet in 2 different emails. The answer is you write the check, they won't cash it till they hit 20 million and become viable. So they want to see it, but they're not going to cash the check. So you're not out that money unless they become viable. They are taking most of the risk. I know 489,000 sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But we are looking at literally over decades, hundreds of millions of dollars in savings. If of course they can build it, then that's the amount of savings. It is a small investment in the overall scheme. It's not an insignificant amount of money, however. But even with regards to any of Dan's projects, any water main extensions, his water towers, these are not unusual dollar amounts out there. As some of you know, the village many years ago was involved in a different project. That one, the village was taking risk and was going to get the reward. That project never panned out, so there was no reward. There was only an expense. This one, most of the risk is being borne by those 3 municipalities. The buy-in is fairly low compared to that. So, $429, right? Yep. That was right. $429,100. So 50% due before July 1st of this year would be $214,550. Then before each of the next 2 July 1st, $107,275. Again, they are trying to get this done before July 1st because there is another very large organization out there, a large city southwest that and its neighboring communities that could piggyback off of this, but it needs to be done quickly. They need to hit viability as soon as possible. That is not needed to make the system work, but should that other group come in, there would be yet more savings involved.
Kent, what was the overall goal is obviously savings, but what did they say, they'd be 3% or 10% less than Chicago all the time?
Yeah, so that also is dependent upon when you sign up as to what the discount would be. They would guarantee that for the first 10 years, if you say, for instance, approve this and write that check by July 1st, and you only have 2 regularly scheduled board meetings between now and then, or in June, I guess between now and then, you would have it would be a 5% discount, it looks like, if I recall, from the Chicago's rate, and then it would freeze that for 10 years.
Right.
So it's not just 5% from day one, but then frozen for the next 10 years. And then after that, a formula that would have less of a it would have a greater discount as it slowly moves up. But the idea is that the overall idea is that with a brand new system, the cost is really up front. After that, you've got bond costs to pay for the thing, but you know exactly what those are going to be, and there's very little to no maintenance on a yearly basis on a brand new system. That is not the case with the City of Chicago system, which is a very, very old system, and we've seen some fairly dramatic price increases for 2 separate multi-year rounds in the last decade. One of them goes back about a decade, but I'd say still within the last decade. This one would have more defined cost, and we'd know what they are, and they'd be stable, which can allow them to give us that. Now, after the 10 years is up, they would never have an increase of more than 2% a year for the first 50 years. 40 years after the guaranteed non-increase.
And Danny, I know you're not near a mic, but what did you think about the rates that they were projecting? Did they look accurate to you?
And that's where I'm not a financial guy with respect to the rates. If they're promising you a discount over Chicago rates, we know what our rates for Chicago are, and we can certainly use a discount.
I guess
so. Part of the reason this makes sense now is about bond rates. The munis out there are as low as they've been in any of our lifetimes. So they are very, very low. So the financing costs of this are much lower than they normally would be.
So we would be financing the upfront costs.
We in a way aren't. That's what happened to Alsip last time. We have an upfront buy-in, but that's really not a financing cost. The financing is being done by, there's no backed by the full faith and credit of the Village of Alsip. There's no geo backing by the village. That's what ended up hurting the village last time, because when the deal fell through, there was a backing based by the village. It's geo backing. There is none here. That's being borne by others. So again, they have the risk reward. We just have that buy-in, which is a significantly different situation than we found ourselves in last time.
I just get a little concerned that, the biggest player, I shouldn't say the biggest player, our resource right now is the city of Chicago, and with the way that is going and the reduction of revenues, the anticipated reduction of revenues coming in, I wouldn't, nobody's got a crystal ball, but I'm considering that I wouldn't try and privatize their water system at some point and put the onus on the suburb to finance their infrastructure. And I tell you, that it would just get out of control.
They had internal looked at that a number of years ago and decided not to go with that, but over the next 40, 50 years, who knows? They financed their parking, they did their tollway, they did all sorts of things that way.
And while the other municipality you spoke of, that's southwest, it's a big town, and I'd like to see them lock in with this, and not maybe, let's say, for instance, they've got options, they could be looking toward Kankakee or something, they could go the other direction, that kind of thing, but right now, their resources are drying up, and they need a source right away, that kind of thing, so.
So, again, this is heavy incentives to have the board approve this and write a check in June. If it's not in June, for instance, the rate guarantee at the first one, instead of 5%, is 3%, and in years 11 through 50, the increase is not as gradual. It goes up a bit faster.
Obviously, do you have that expense figured in our budget here?
I did not, because you've not passed it.
Okay.
If you pass it, we can get that in. You're going to be passing the budget on June 15th. You would have to pass this on June 1st or June 15th.
You said July, I thought, on this, right?
We have to give them the money.
You have to give them, you have to pass this in June.
Okay, so we'll be talking about
two
all
board
matters.
meetings are June 1st and June 15th.
Right.
If it's on the agenda on June 1st, it's obviously in the budget. If it's on the agenda on June 15th, I'm putting it in the budget.
Gotcha.
If you don't want to vote on it and don't spend it, that's fine.
So talking this out loud and also just information, so we need to consume 20 mg.
No.
The consortium needs to
The whole
consume.
consortium has to do 20 million gallons, and that 20 million gallons, it's not really the use, it's based on the allocation that we get from the state, so it's not quite use. But we are one of the bigger players of all of them that they are targeting. I think we're, based on the allocation, I think we're a little over 5 million. We're a little over 5 million. So there's a lot of potential players, but we're one of the larger ones. Because of that, and that's because of our industry, and we supply to 2 other municipalities. So that makes us a larger one. Because of that, we're not going to have as high of a rate as most of the other municipalities in there. Because we purchase directly from Chicago and they're giving us a discount based on where we get our water, we don't have additional middlemen between Chicago and us. So our rate initially is going to be lower than almost any other municipality as part of this. Now, at the end of 50 years, our increase after 10 years, it's frozen for 10 years, and our increase after that will end up getting us, everyone in 50 years is probably going to be paying pretty close to the same amount, but we have a huge discount compared to almost any other municipality in the system.
And then as the municipalities that are listed in this color-coded map that in our packet, how many have agreed or moved forward that you know of?
The COVID-19's thrown them a loop, and not many places have been meeting. So they're desperate to try to get ones, I think, have been not very big play. Frankly, they're kind of that everyone wakes up at the July 1st date, but it hasn't happened. Again, though, because they've given us this guarantee, and I don't know that they've given it to anyone else. I think it's just Alsip, because Alsip's one of the bigger players, that they won't cash the check if it doesn't get to 20 million and becomes viable. We've greatly reduced our risk right off the bat. If it doesn't get the viability at 20 million gallons, we're out $0 even if you approve it. That is not, I believe, a deal given where. I don't know if they have or haven't. I do know that they've gave us that assurance.
Trustee, it's a great question, and next week
I don't think there's many. Again, I think what happened is the COVID-19 thing. This was the window they were expecting to go to board meetings and a lot of meetings and committee meetings, et cetera, in other municipalities, especially some of the smaller ones, have been canceled, or they've tried to leave it to them, shorten the agendas on those meetings.
No.
So I don't think much has happened outside of those 3 municipalities.
No, but what I'm saying is, we're going to reach out, and I'll get you a tally on who said yes. Let's put it that way. Okay. Go ahead.
It's the same thing. How many businesses have you good about when you go to a used car, says, if you don't buy the car before you leave, the deal's off?
Mm-hmm.
Is that always a good deal? If it's a good deal, they don't have to sit there and incentivize you or threaten you or anything else. It's a good deal. And when they were here making the presentation, for what that appeared to be for the next 50 years, it looked absolutely, like Ken had said, we're apt to save our community quite a bit of money for the water. The problem I always see, problem that we experienced last time, is that if it's a really good deal, why aren't they inviting an Oak Lawn, who has a huge water system? How far is their water pumping station from us? 2 miles. 2 miles away, and they're 50 times our size?
50,000 residents.
2 miles, 50 times our size. Had we had a partner like Oak Lawn last time, it would have worked. But they're not reaching out to somebody who's 50 times our size, 2 miles away.
I understand your concern.
I think they don't want Oak Lawn to go and do this themselves and do it just for themselves. Oak Lawn could go and drop a pipe too. I believe
Okay, then if that's the case, why isn't Oak Lawn, who supplies most of the communities around us, sizable communities, why aren't they doing this themselves then? If it's going to save hundreds of millions
right,
of dollars.
But Oak Lawn doesn't have the incentive to get down to those 3 starting communities.
But those 3 communities that are starting communities are, they're not even the size of us.
Right.
I can give you a little bit of information on that.
Yeah. Dan, use the mic, please.
I don't know what the agreement was. With regards to payment for it, but Oak Lawn was rebuilt substantially from, right down Southwest Highway, and so there was a significant investment either on Chicago's part or Oak Lawn paid for it directly, but they have a significant investment in that supply coming to them from Chicago, and it's a separate service than where we get water from Chicago.
Right, but to me, like what we have, Chicago owns a pipe to 115th of Pulaski, and then that's our pipe in to our pump station, right?
Correct.
So, once it's at the meter vault, then it's our responsibility. So, I don't know, but I suspect Chicago paid for it to wherever the meter vault is for Oak Lawn, then Oak Lawn assumes the rest. I know that they rebuilt their distribution facility out to their other communities, and that had been problematic. I can appreciate that with a new system, that there isn't much of a maintenance cost, but the prudent investor will sit there and put away monies for that future maintenance cost, and then as that maintenance cost comes up, it's not a, holy crap, I got to get 50 million bucks here. You know, they'll put $1 million away a year, and then at 50 years, they got a boatload of money sitting there, expecting that cost.
Well, I know you posed the question to Robinson's, representative the last time as to why they didn't, and I don't recall his answer, but, obviously it wasn't sufficient, and maybe we need to look into that a little further.
It doesn't make sense. The unfortunate thing, the tag for 1.6 times.
Right.
I don't want to sit there making an even $2 million mistake. I love the concept. I was in support of it last time, but it just seemed like it was a great idea, poorly implemented, and we were lied to.
Right.
And nothing against the gentlemen who were here making the presentations. They seem sincere. We saw that same sincerity before, and we were lied to. And my concern is that we're 2 miles away from a huge player. And those people said they never even talked to Oak Lawn about this. If you're going to come up with a conception plan for this thing, how hard is a phone call? How hard is it to sit there and reach out and say, look, here's our plan, this is what we're looking at. And they're hedging this whole thing on July 1st so they can get Joliet in. They don't need Joliet. They got Oak Lawn 2 miles away.
I think you make some great points. I think what I can do is ask them if you've approached Oak Lawn, and if you're not approaching them.
They said they didn't.
I know, but and that was a month ago or whatever. But I'm saying, like, if you haven't approached them, why? That kind of thing.
If there was a huge investment by Chicago's not doing that unless they have a long-term agreement, or Oak Lawn's paying for it. One way or the other, Chicago's not doing that. And I say that I live in a town that also down Southwest Highway gets its water from Oak Lawn, and they redid that whole pipe all the way down. It's separate than the Orland one. And that had our town had to enter into a long-term agreement with Oak Lawn in order for that to happen. Yes, it's done at the meter vault, but a long-term agreement had to be entered into before Oak Lawn was willing to pay for that system.
But you can still get your water regardless of where Oak Lawn gets it from. So that part of the contract has...
No, but I'm using that as a parallel between Oak Lawn and the city of Chicago. If there is a brand new pipe, there's no way Chicago's building that thing without either Oak Lawn paying for it or indirectly Oak Lawn paying for it by doing a long-term contract with price built into it. My guess is that's the whole reason.
I know you've told me, just in conversation, that it's not a very competitive rate compared to what we're doing right now.
No. Right. Yeah, so, the city of Chicago has increased their rates. What I pay in my water rate, for instance, because I have a middleman, is I think probably 3 times what you pay for water rates, and I live 2 towns over.
Right. But again, good questions. I'm making notes here as well too. So I'm going to find out who has committed, and if, as you said, Trustee Dalzell, we made a good suggestion to them last time here. Did you approach them, and if you're not bringing them in, why not? That kind of thing too. Find out.
I will say, because this is such a big issue, and you need to to get the best deal, you need to be doing it in June. You might want another committee meeting. Depending on how these things come in. You might want another meeting. I mean, big enough issue that may not fit a normal 1 meeting and 2 board meetings during the summer. So we'll try to stay on it and give information. I don't think many places have approved it outside of those 3 municipalities just because of the pandemic. And I think there is a reason for the Oak Lawn, probably the other. And once again, there's no money out unless it hits the 20 million. There's no money, check's not cashed, unless the 20 million gallons is out and there's no geo backing behind it.
So we would be able to get a rep on Zoom to answer questions.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no
Could we
problem.
request that?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you want, they're going to send someone out to either on Zoom or they'll send them out here. You can have their attention anytime.
So do you want on for vote for next week, or do you want to?
No, we're not ready for a vote on that yet.
I'm just asking so we know what to do with the agenda.
If anything, we might have to get Aaron Fundage back out if we still want to pursue this.
And again, I ask for flexibility. It may make sense to have a special one committee meeting before a board type of thing. Maybe next Monday there's a 6:30 meeting like we used to do, just so that you don't have to have an extra day. I don't know, but they're saying to be prepared for some flexibility because we've sat on this for a number of months, and that deadline is coming soon.
Could we get him to come out here? Would anybody be up for that, to have him, a Q&A with him at 6:30 next Monday?
I don't understand why we have to have a separate committee meeting.
Yeah,
We can have a discussion.
We can
during a
do it
board
right during a
Get the
meeting,
answer
because
about
we got the
one.
presentation already,
That's fine.
you know, so it might just like
I
say a
will-
couple of questions.
I will get someone out here at the board meeting, next
Yeah.
board meeting.
Have Aaron come back out.
And whoever comes, make sure that they've got supporting documentation, proof of whatever it is that they say that they have.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I was sitting next to you when we had a mayor from another town actually come in and stick his head in the door and tell us, yeah, we're good. You know, like, no, we're not. I can't think.
Dealer invoice, Rick?
Thank you very much.
So we're leaving it on for next week.
Not as a vote,
Not
but
as a
as a
vote.
discussion.
Yeah. Trustee Navas-Barr, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Then Health,
Report this evening.
okay. Human Resource, and Nancy Murphy.
A presentation of COVID-19 employee guidelines effective June 1st, 2020, or once the Village Hall has been reopened to the public. One additional note, in the packet, and I handed out a sheet, there was an addition to what was in the packet, number 2. Signage will be posted in the Village Hall asking patrons not to enter if they're experiencing COVID-19 symptoms. If a patron is not wearing a mask, you can kindly offer them a mask in order to serve them. Each department will have a supply of disposable masks on hand, including sanitizer. I'd go through all of these for time. I think a lot of this is redundant, and they've been in place, and these things are happening already.
Sinead, do you have a dog?
No.
Okay, I thought I heard a dog in there someplace. Okay. You know, what I did, Sinead, very quickly, when we handed out what you and I had discussed with regard to reopening the Village Hall, one thing I did not include in there, and I made an adjustment to it, was, I think somebody else must have my copy, but anyway, can I borrow yours, Trustee? Thank you. Sinead, what I added was, it's the same document that you had drafted. One thing we did not address, so I put on here was, I like to have, it was after number 1, I put in number 2 was signage will be posted at the hall asking patrons not to enter if they're experiencing COVID-19 symptoms. And if a patron is not wearing a mask, you can kindly offer them a mask in order to serve them. Each department will have a supply of disposable masks on hand, including hand sanitizer. We've got some stuff on back order right now, but we are going to have hand sanitizer out there. And certainly I can make available some disposable masks at each of the windows at the clerk's office and at the water and building in case somebody doesn't have one on for any reason then too, but that's the only thing I wanted to add to what you had drafted, what you and I talked about.
Okay.
Okay,
May I?
go ahead.
A couple of, the South and Southwest Clerks Association had sent out an email, and I have kind of collated the comments. A lot of the ones around us aren't opening until Phase 3 and the governor's next declaration. Those that are opening are requiring people that enter their buildings to wear a mask, so it's at the door, not handing it to them when they get to a window. They are also, it would be my thought that we need to get the support of somebody to police the count of people coming into the building and to make sure that the people are observing the social distancing. I know in the past when we have been selling vehicle stickers on the first Saturday in May and the last Saturday in June that we've had either a police officer or a CSO on site to help with the crowds because the people have been there. So we need to get some support to make sure that we are not getting too crowded in the hallway with people.
Well, I think in the interest of both duties assigned during the day for our police and certainly the CSOs have a job to do as well. My office made a vet, either myself, if the girls in the office feel that they're getting overwhelmed or people aren't doing what they should, they can certainly ask my office for assistance, and we'd be happy to help. I think it's just difficult for me to have the chief assign policemen to stand, to monitor that unless we have a need. And certainly I think it's a little more cordial just to have either somebody not in uniform come out and address these folks too. That's fine.
I would also suggest that between the doors right outside the clerk's office and the doors at the PD that we do one as an inside and one as an outside of doors instead of people coming back and forth. In discussion with Erica, I know Roger Early and Erica had some conversation earlier today about putting stanchions out to guide people, etc. When Erica and I were talking, it was if they come in the PD doors, they could naturally have a queuing space to the windows, and then they could exit out the front doors, as opposed to having people come in the front doors and then have to go possibly up the stairs and wait in a queue line, etc.
What if handicapped?
Well, that would be the exception. Obviously, we have to make exceptions all over the place, but as a general rule, to get the traffic going in a circular motion, for lack of a better way of putting it, that seems to also be a common denominator at other towns of them having a one door coming in and a one door going out. I know businesses like hair salons are also doing it where you're coming in one door and leaving out a separate door, so there's not traffic going back and forth.
That's fine. I think the problem we'll have though too is to actually to monitor traffic like that. I think it would be a very tough task to do, because I think and I can tell you, I can't, and the girls will tell you too, I can't even get to lunch whenever time I step out of my office. There's 2 or 3 people standing at that front door, and as a courtesy, I'll go out and greet them, and I'll walk their information in and get them a vehicle to wish.
And ladies in the office are also making exceptions when going out and they're right now going out and getting paperwork and payment for building permits and running it down, and also running stickers out as well. But I think if we are going to open it up, we have to try to support our personnel as much as possible.
I get that, but I think what the problem is going to be is, and again, we're not looking to, I think everyone's gone through a hard enough time the last couple of months of the shelter in place and so forth, but I think what's the real difficulty is going to be is if somebody walks up to that front door, and again, people have tunnel vision. There's the front door, that's where I'm going. And I said, whoa, wait a minute, you're going to walk down there, you're going to walk up that hill, and then you're going to come down that hallway just to get back where you started. This is a great way to start a fight. I mean, it's going to instigate.
Well, and my counter thought to that would be now with Village Hall being closed, we are directing going either if they're not doing it online to go and drop the money in the drop box. So
Right.
they're used to going to the north side of the building right now anyway.
But they're not coming back to where they started, and I think that's what would upset everybody. Is they're going up the stairs, down the stairs, they're going all over the place just to get back where I started from and stuff, and I don't know, it's just my thoughts on it. I like the idea of directionally if we had the room to do it, but I think we're just going to upset people for no reason. I really do.
And it works well on a 72-degree day. It won't work when it's raining.
Right.
Well, and there's a potential at any point in time to have a line of people that if we're going to maintain 6 feet distance, where are they going to go? Are they going to go down the hall? Are they going to go up the steps? I mean, on Saturday, before we've had them up the steps.
And you can mark the foot intervals and hope we'll sit there and abide by it.
Mm-hmm.
From what my experience is watching those things, is that the 3 foot seems to be the more tolerable thing with people in a line.
Mm-hmm.
We've got all the, we ordered the monitoring straps, like the barricades, per se, for lack of a better, what do you call those?
Stanchions.
There you go,
They're
stanchions.
retractable stanchions.
They're on back order. Obviously, everybody jumped on these things at the same time, so we are going to make provisions to separate. We got the markers for the floor, Roger, correct?
The markers for the floor are due in on the 28th of this month. As soon as they're received, they would be shipped out to us, so we will not receive them before June 1st. The barricades, as I recall, we will not see before the middle of July.
Right. I mean, we've got those little plastic men we use for elections and stuff. We can use things to separate folks, and we can certainly use a little bit of blue tape in the interim. I mean, we can always improvise.
What if we got the CERT team involved?
Maybe we can check on their availability. Yeah. But I'm just saying, I don't want to drag folks out just waiting for a crowd.
I think if there's going to be a really long line, people are going to be more prone to throwing it in the box anyway
Yes.
and walking
Could
out.
be. But I'm saying, between myself and Becky or whatever, I mean, there's always somebody around that can help out. And certainly I can make a call up to the PD if they have somebody, available. I can ask them to send a guy down for a little bit and stuff. And I just don't want to designate somebody. I don't want to create a duty, that Jay doesn't have and stuff. He's got enough things going on with his guys right now, too.
And I guess my only other question or thought would be, at least for the month of June, possibly not having Village Hall opened until 8 p.m. on Mondays. If we're going from nothing and opening back up, I think if we open up from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, that would be acceptable.
No, it's the only day of the week, though, that working people can get in. I can tell you, before I had this job.
Right now, they're either doing it online or they're dropping it in a Dropbox.
I think that's still part of their contract, though, too, that they have to work till 8 o'clock one day a week, right?
They haven't.
I mean, we haven't because of
We haven't
this.
been doing it now. They didn't work
No.
the first Saturday in May because we weren't open to the public, so.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. Now that we are, I think we have an obligation to honor that.
Okay.
But otherwise, Shanae, the outline that you gave is a good outline. And one thing I did want to confirm, and I know it just, I don't want it just to be an interpretation thing, but the number one that you had on here was, once the Village Hall is reopened to the public, all employees housed or visiting the main hall must wear a mask daily as part of your PPE. Are we, when you say the main hall, about just a window?
Yes, so again, just the main hall there, the clerk's windows, inspectors coming in who, are typically out in the field, but they may walk into the building and water department. We just want to make sure that when those guys come in, that they are wearing a mask as well. So it's not just anyone who are work assignment were actually housed in the village hall. But any employees who are, visiting, to pick up a building permit or drop off inspections or whatever, that they are, wearing that mask as well.
Understood, okay. But I'm saying that, I understand what you're saying. In other words, any personnel coming through the building, now that we are open to the public, we are asking all personnel to have a mask on as they're traveling through the halls and whatnot.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, well, we'll certainly have to reiterate that correctly to all the employees so they understand what our intent is then, too.
So we are going to require, though, that the public, when they enter the building, wear a mask?
Oh, we're going to put, we'll put a note up on the door, yeah. And like I say, if somebody gets past, we'll have a couple extras there that we can hand out or whatever and stuff then, too. And then, Sinead, one last thing, you had on here, number 1, gloves will remain at the counter for your use in handling transactions. Do you want to mandate those gloves for people at the window?
The only reason why that it will be is, consideration of those who are that may be hard to do, to tender cash and they're wearing gloves or, and I did discuss that with the office supervisor, Erica, and we thought that it was a good idea to still just make that optional.
Okay.
But they always, have the hand sanitizer available, and definitely encourage to still wash your hands with the water and soap as often as possible.
That's fine.
We thought that was pretty sufficient.
All right, we're going to have hand sanitizing stanchions coming, right, Raj?
We do not have a date on
They're on back order right now.
They're hard to get.
Right. But we are going to establish a hand sanitizer and like let's say, for instance, on the kiosk or whatever you may call it, the stanchion in the middle by the clerk's office in the hallway, we're going to have plenty of hand sanitizer and so forth on that, along with any if people need to do as well. Then, but we have to go down to water and building department as well. Any other questions from anybody? One other thing too, Trustee, I was going to just remind you on the insurance side of things too. I did make myself a note that we got a call today from Horton Insurance, and they're recommending an increase in the crime insurance, right?
They ended up looking at further, they're fine.
They said we don't need it? That's okay. I just repeat what you were saying.
Yes, we don't need it as a village. They're recommending to the pension boards, and I sent you something.
Okay.
That they get crime insurance because it's not covered under ours.
All right. And one last thing for the board on HR. I did get an email from Paylocity a few weeks back when we took a vote to adopt the Paylocity program that interfaces with our scheduling programs from Malad Tech. The board majority at that time said they wanted employees to acknowledge, they want them to clock is what they want to do. But my idea of clocking is, people that clock now will clock then, will continue to do so. But for a lot of our exempt personnel, they do not hit a time clock right now. And I'd like to have something where I'd like to at least acknowledge either by a fob or even like a remote setting that they can clock in that they came in every day and stuff then too, because some people work remotely, as in police and fire do sometimes yet too. But the Paylocity person today sent me Mr. McCann sent me a note today saying what kind of time clocks does the board request, would the board like implemented? And I thought I sent this out to everybody, but the HP 3000 clocks, you need to fob and then put your hand down to confirm your identity. Otherwise, B would be, if we just want to fob, use Acroprint FT217. This require a biometric handprint, and personally, that's where I'm at. but we got to pick out one system here and so forth, and that's what I'm asking the board this evening, is there any preference, obviously the board majority was asking for this, is there any preference in equipment? Because, again, I don't see, if you've got exempt personnel right now, you know, they're on salary, and that's a fixed rate unless they didn't have the enough hours in, which most people will, but, you know, whether they work, you know, with the Fair Labor Standards Act, whether you work an hour short or 10 hours long, it's the same salary regardless and stuff then, too. It's on management's discretion. But I did not wish to mandate a biometric scenario for everybody like that, because it's something that hasn't been done before, and they're really changing policy.
I had suggested that based on, and Kent spoke to this a bit in regards to it'll happen eventually, that everybody clock in so you could base their clocking and them being here versus not being here on their fringe, on the holiday, their time due, their vacation pay, their personal days, those things. So those can be gauged and tracked. Because you said that there were two different fluctuations in regards to when you get it versus Shanae, and it's not real time.
But what I'm referring to is right now.
Would that even it out?
Well,
would that fix the problem?
Well, that's the whole idea, is we're getting an interface that's where this Paylocity things comes in, because it'll take those scheduling softwares and the interfaces with the office. Right now, we've never had the software like in HR to see what all the other departments wait for, like, well, you know, where they send over that, where it's not coming real. So everybody's going to be in the same, everybody can see the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying that correctly, Ken?
Yeah, but that shouldn't really have a bearing, though, is tried to go biometric or fob.
Right. There's a whole bunch of different issues mixed in here. The biometric versus the fob is whether or not, with the biometric, someone is actually proving that they're here, and they're not. There's no equivalent of, I took someone else's time thing and clicked in, which you could, in theory, do with a fob. You can't do that with biometric. With regards to the what the mayor was talking about, and well, what you were asking about with regards to the time, some people are paid up through the Friday that the paycheck is done. Some are 1 week behind, and some are 2 weeks behind. And I think Dan, for instance, he's one, and some of his employees are a second, and some of his employees are a third, and he doesn't even have that many employees. So he's very familiar with the fact that there are different time periods. We could at some point decide to put them all on the same time period. That would mean that some people who are 2 weeks behind.
That's all going to get done, but we're just talking about
and then
this.
The third was we have some scheduling software in police and fire, and that scheduling software does not yet talk to our system. In the short to medium term, we're looking at building an interface so better data can be had by management of who's off on what days, et cetera.
Didn't we already agree to that?
That
has already been agreed to. It's for the interim.
We haven't agreed
over the
to
long term.
Which type of clock is what I'm.
Right.
Well, it is, and the type of clock by itself can just be decided right now,
Right.
and we don't
It's
need to care
separate
about
than all
any
the
of that
others.
stuff.
Over
That's
the
what I'm
long
getting
term,
at,
you could
right.
still have the system
And we
do
can
the
just say right now,
rescheduling.
fob, and be done. Sorry, I mean, we don't need to be talking about side topics that have no bearing to the question.
Well, it's, he just gave me the overall, but yeah, the question here is, what type of timekeeping do we want to adopt? And like I
Is there a
said,
difference in maintenance on either one?
Yeah, there's
Boss?
got to be, because of, I mean, if it's scanning, I mean, there's.
But
more-
with fobs,
far
people
more
lose fobs. You
electronics
don't lose
and-
your hand.
But, I mean, I can say my employer uses thumbprints. But,
yeah, the
But
three
if you're
ideas that
talking
we
about
had was,
using people
one
in-
looked like a typical clock that you can just fob. And I thought he told us that you can actually even trick that like through the doorway when you walked in the morning and stuff like that,
If you
right?
get those interfaces to schedule that.
That's kind of where I'm at with this, is if, when you're walking in the morning, if
Right.
you were fobbing the door to
And
unlock the door when you
With
walk in,
exempt
you know?
personnel possibly. The last time I did a time clock, I did a full handprint. Wasn't any big deal.
Yeah, my husband's last employer did the full handprint.
Full handprint, yeah.
Obviously, there's no one perfect system. And the difficulty is that you can't plan for every situation. I'm sure when there's a water leak and Dan runs there, I'm here to fob in
That's
or
what
he
I'm getting
addresses
at,
that.
right.
As well as the fire chief when he responds to a call or the police chief when he does. They're not going to come here in order to do that. The issue always been is that the accounting that we have for the accruals are all over the board. And on the checks that our employees receive, I don't believe that those accruals presently are accurate. Maybe each of the departments have an accurate accounting, but for whatever reason, it's never made it into the payroll system. And when we issue a paycheck to an employee and say that they have X number of hours of vacation, that becomes proof that they have X number of hours of vacation, even though it's not right.
Right, and a good case of that is an employee who was out sick last week. Well, last Friday was the pay period. Why? They didn't submit their time sheet because they weren't here on Friday. So their pay period shows sick days that they don't have. So the cleaner you get, there's always going to be some of those issues. But if every time that one of these decisions come to you, you go with the one that has the best internal control or is the most integrated, etc., slowly but surely you start checking them off the list and getting to a better and better system. So when you're looking at these things, trying to go for stuff that is better integrated or better internal control or less likely something's going to go wrong or two different people are keeping recording it, or that there's a computer recording it versus keystroke error, all of those things are going to ultimately get us to better reconciliations, which frankly we're not at right now.
And as you said, Trustee, that's what I was saying before, is there's still going to be a lot of remote signing in. You know, like you said, if somebody's going on a Saturday night to respond to a water main break or something like that, there'll be a lot of remote sign-ins and so forth then, too. So not everything is going to be mandated to a biometric or a file,
Right.
too.
You can do it, and
Right.
some jobs don't allow in certain times.
Right.
So is the decision, are we going with a fob or a fob and a biometric handprint?
Well, we're going to,
I'll tell you, if you go with the fob-only system, it will cost you thousands of dollars later to change that system. If you go the other route, I think you can do both, right?
Well, what's the upfront cost difference right now, though?
I think, is Sinead still on there? I think it was
Sinead,
negotiated
I
pretty
think it
low
was
rate.
negligible. I think it was marginal, right?
Can you repeat the question?
The cost between the fob sign-in versus the biometric,
Oh, I don't know that offhand.
I think it was
I think as
small.
part of the deal, it was negligible this time around. It wouldn't be if you went and purchased them later.
Right.
It's part of the overall package.
So that's where I started with the question. That's why I've got
Can
it.
that be sent to us and we can vote on it next week?
We sure could.
The pricing?
Yeah.
Decide then?
I don't think the pricing, that's what we said, it's only a
Marginal?
few, it's marginal. It's only
Marginal
a few
and-
bucks. But I
Go
think
with the better
we
one.
want to get direction from the board so we can keep things moving here then too. So what I wanted to do was just get an idea from everybody what you wanted, because the board majority wanted to see a sign-in. Do you want to go biometric or do you want to do a fob situation? What do you think, Trustee Zelinski?
I didn't want it the whole system in the first place, but the way they're describing it, if that's what that's going to be good for is the internal things, then get whatever they think is most important. I mean, it's not even affecting us. So if they want a biometric system and it's not going to cost that much more, get the biometric one.
Sinead, let me ask too, I know you've been involved with this and everything we've been doing. Was there anything you were favoring? Let me ask you.
My big thing was that, whatever method it is, I just want it to be consistent. And what I mean by consistent as far as if all non-exempt employees are using a certain method, then it should be one method. And because, as Kent said, that's one of the major things that we're lacking. We're lacking a standard procedure. We're lacking a standard reporting procedure when it comes to payroll. So, honestly, I don't care about the type of timekeeping machine that we use. I care more about the consistency, and it's also really important to identify who's going to be using that system as well, because we are starting to have those implementation calls. We had a call last week, and there is so much that has to go into building out this system that if we're going to exclude certain class of workers from actually using this system, then it needs to be known now, because that's a lot of professional hours.
Nobody is being excluded, will be on the same program, so we're in agreement on that. We're just trying to decide which clock to go at, that's it.
Okay.
So,
I just know one thing too, also with the biometrics, it was a concern that, us switching to a biometric system right now, especially with everything going on with COVID, you're requiring everyone to use, and do a finger scan on the same machine. That has been brought up as a concern. But I did say that, we'll try to do as much as we can as far as even if it's providing a protective cover, something like how you see at the, when you're buying groceries, or they have the covers over the machines now when you process your cards, so that it can be easily wiped with, Clorox wipes, and that we're putting hand sanitizer by there, because, again, you have multiple people touching the same machine. That has been a concern, but we can, cross that bridge when we get there.
I think you just did, because I think you make a great point. Seriously, I mean, here we're all trying to. I mean, we're going through a bucket of hand sanitizer on our desk, for crying out loud, and now we're going to adopt something where everybody gets to put their paw on that thing every day and stuff. Then too, I don't think that makes sense. Yeah, makes sense.
It has a protective cover. You never see anyone over there wiping off their protective cover after somebody hits their PIN number or anything.
Right.
It's just not being done.
I don't know if could you hear that, Shanae?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay, what Trustee Dalzell was saying is, you can throw those protective covers on there all day, and that doesn't mean anybody's wiping that thing off, and it's, again, somebody's still touching it multiple times a day. You're clocking in, you're clocking out, you're going here, you're going there. We've got 168 employees. I mean, this thing's going to get a workout, so.
Well, I think it's important, just like how, I know the ladies in the office where I'm at, we try to, wipe down doorknobs frequently. We're wiping down, the copiers, and even in public works. I know those guys, in water, they're cleaning the trucks after every use. So maybe, again, if those are just things that we practice with the machine, hey, after you use your punch, maybe you wipe before and wipe after you do your punch. Mm-hmm. Just, a courtesy, a quick courtesy wipe. And again, it'll just be up to management to make that we're having the necessary PPE things there, whether it's, the sanitizer and the wipes there for their disposal.
Yeah.
I think we got to fix the cause. So is the cause one or two employees, or is it more rampant? So if the issue is that we're missing hours, or we're uncertain if somebody is on time, or if they're putting in overtime. I know years ago we implemented a payroll system. People were punching the clock, and the system cranked out the numbers automatically. And because people were good about being on time, which meant that they came 15 minutes before, they punched in. And they're getting 15 minutes of overtime because they punched in 15 minutes before the shift.
Yeah.
Because the system wasn't built to discern their start time was 8 a.m.
So, Shanae, did you hear that?
Yes, so
Okay.
Now every system has it where you can, in whatever your company's payroll rounding practices are. And so it's built into the timekeeping that they're using now as far as within Public Works, Water, and then the clerks. And so it'll just be the same thing. When it goes to the Paylocity, it'll be built into that timekeeping system.
Right, so
Where it's rounding.
so the people get off at 4:30, and they dutifully wait for the time clock to do their punch out. And so the one punches out, and then the next one sits there and wipes off the pad, waits for it to dry, and then they punch out. And by the time the nth person leaves, it's now a tenth of an hour past, or 12 minutes past. So now we're paying overtime for those few people because they're all waiting in line for the time clock.
Doesn't the system do fobs too? I mean, this is a 2020 problem. This year is COVID-19. I think if we had to.
I think basically what all we want to do, and I keep everybody so long here tonight, but we got to wrap up, but basically we're just trying to decide which type of timekeeping system to use, whether it's, biometric or the fob system. More importantly, what was the crux, what Trustee Dalzell was asking for, what was the crux of what you see as far as being the problem that we need this interface? It's because you can't see real time? Is that what you're identifying?
Well, again, the interface in the timekeeping system, the method of the time system doesn't matter. It's the interface that we need. So whether it's a fob or the biometrics time clocks that we get, they're both going to do the same thing, which is interface your system with your scheduling. And it will bridge that gap of what's going on now with the different departments. It's like they're siloed. It's not all together as one organization. So instead of having to call to each department and figure out, how much PTO time someone has, I myself or Heather can directly just look into the system and see, because Trustee Dalzell, you pointed out a huge problem. People checks says the incorrect PTO time, and their checks also say the incorrect, some people checks actually have the wrong payroll period because everyone's on different pay cycles. So there's a ton of different problems that are being addressed by interfacing the system. It's not just one issue.
Right. And that's what Kent was pointing out, is we're going to try and get everybody's pay period on the same. We'll do the clocks, to be consistent, and most importantly was the interface, and that's the example Trustee McGlowan just brought up when I said I went to you recently with we had some people teleworking rather, and the information rather wasn't accurate. So this will clear all that up.
I have a question about, like, for example, when you log your Gmail account, you get a verification code, and I know that a previous employer that I had, they had like a duo system or something. You can get a push to your phone or your computer to verify that it's you, that you're logging into like your system and so forth like that. There's no software like for payroll that, they can get like a push for those that can use their own computer and so forth, so they don't have to like key in or use a fob and so forth. Has that been explored?
2FA.
Thank you.
I don't know. It wasn't part of the system here. And again, you'd still need to know where someone is. You'd still want to know where they are. It's just
If you're talking with your cell phone, it grabs the GPS coordinates.
Right, and there is a geofence for something like this then too. I do know that. I looked into that.
right.
So
There is one other. I'm sorry. I should have thought of it earlier. When we were talking about catching up 1 week and 2 week behind, we were talking about doing it at some point. Ultimately, those wages have already been earned by those people, and the village already owes that. If we are talking it now, which probably would make the most sense in terms of program to catch them up, so everyone is on the same system and it makes it work more effectively, we would have to go and put that into the budget, because some people would have an extra 2 weeks this year and some people would have an extra 1 week this year. Again, it is all money that is owed to them, but you have to pay them. They're in arrears, and that was not put into the budget for this year.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not, because instead of 52 weeks, some people have 53, and some people would have 54
Yeah,
weeks
but-
this year.
Yeah,
That
but-
wasn't built into the budget.
But even if you were 2 weeks back, it would have fell into this as
Well,
opposed to
it
that.
would be your last year of
Right.
employment you'd have further. But if we're going to line it all up, which frankly would make a better system and make it easier on both payroll and on Shanae, it would be better to do it now.
That's fine.
But I'd need to know it kind of now. You're not just asking about time clocks now, you're also asking whether I put that, it's a marginal amount, it's not a huge amount. But I would be adding that to the budget, which it does not exist already.
I think you have to, because, we got to get this done.
Anyone have any
So-
problem with that? Okay, I'm going to do that.
So, I'll just finish where I was at. So, Trustee Zelinski, you didn't have a preference?
No,
All right.
I don't.
Trustee Navas-Barza, any preference?
The thing, like the biometric.
Biometric? Trustee Dalzell?
None of the above.
Okay. Trustee Murphy?
Biometric, if it's not that much more, and you won't lose a fob. If you run the risk of losing a fob, you're not going to lose a finger or a hand.
All right, and Trustee
Yeah, I
LeBlanc?
mean, it's better to, like Kent said, do the biometric now as opposed to paying for it down the road.
Okay. So we had 3 biometrics and a either or, so actually had 4 votes for that then, so. All right, well, thank you, Shanae, and I apologize for keeping you up so long and stuff until, okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Mayor, there was one more thing that in the packet regarding the training video, the water department was not listed in there. Just for the record, they should be in that.
Oh, yeah.
As
Yeah, no problem.
opposed to where police and fire are doing their own thing for their own videos, the water department was not mentioned.
Did you hear
Should
that,
be in
Shanae?
there.
Yes, I emailed Trustee Murphy, told him that earlier, that I
this is
forgot
your-
to
this was
mention
Chris's.
the water department. So it's all departments except police and fire, because they already have very extensive training that they're going through already.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll wrap up here. Special Committee Reports, Economic Development, Trustee Navas-Barza.
Thank you. I have request approval of an ordinance of the Village of Alsip approving a First Amendment to an agreement between the Village of Alsip and Barton Real Estate Holdings, Inc. for certain real estate transactions and the redevelopment of property located at 11638 through 58 South Pulaski Road, Village of Alsip, County of Cook, State of Illinois, in furtherance of the objectives of the redevelopment plan and project approved for the Pulaski Road Corridor TIF redevelopment project area.
You can go if you wish, that's fine. Thank you.
And I also have request approval of an ordinance of the Village of Alsip authorizing the purchase of real estate located at 11638 South Pulaski Avenue, Village of Alsip, County of Cook, State of Illinois, in furtherance of the objectives of the redevelopment plan and project approved for the Pulaski Road Corridor TIF redevelopment project area.
Trustees, just so everybody understands what's going on with these, we are on, actually, Firewater's looking to throw a shovel in the ground like right away. They actually sent me an email the other day, can't wait to get started. There was an extra cost to purchasing the Studio K property, and the developer is paying that money, not us. So that's where the amendment comes from then, too. We're just acknowledging a change in the redevelopment agreement as well as the purchase agreement, and that's what's going on here. I sent a copy of each to each party that it corresponds to, and everybody's good with that, and they'll get that going then, too. Okay. Next, Village Properties, Trustee McGlohorn.
No report this evening, Mayor.
Trustee, I'm looking at some ideas, too, right now. I don't have anything yet, but I do want to see if we can't get, if there's anything, let's put it this way, it's hard enough for everybody to get tested for these COVID symptoms right now, but if something does come up, I'm going to look at that and see if we can't get something remote over to the Heritage Apartments once it becomes, right now, at large, you know, I mean, these tests aren't even barely there and stuff then,
But I
too,
say
so.
the seniors are higher risk
Absolutely.
residents.
And they've been really good about staying home and all that kind of thing, so I'm going to see if I can find some resources for that. Ordinance legislation, Trustee Zelinski.
No report this evening.
All right. And then Planning and Zoning and Licenses Committee.
That would be me, and next week we will have a request for approval of a list of licenses dated May 18th through May 26th of 2020.
I know they've got it. When's that hearing coming up, Raj? Is that June 10th? Okay, and two good businesses coming in. We're looking at that yet, too. Any presentations, petitions, or communications?
I have one short one. Complete the census, please. We're at 69.2. You can do phone, mail, and then online as well.
Any unfinished business?
Yes, Trustee Shanae was able to get direction from Horton, so to read into the record, the bid opening, the premium for the 2020 to 2021 is $147,183. That's $147,183.
Very good. And what was it last year?
It
Clerk,
was
do you know?
$110,574.
So up a little over $1,000 more.
Yep.
Okay. Any new business? Then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll adjourn this meeting then at 10:25, and again, I apologize, and then it's run so long, but good meeting, a lot of stuff discussed yet, too. Have a great evening.